My parents grabbed my hair while I was setting up for my first art exhibit. These look like doodles from kindergarten. My dad barked. My mom laughed loudly. I left crying 2 years later. One of my paintings was sold for $47,000 and they wanted a cut. It's a little strange how life has a way of turning things upside down. The past few years have been a whirlwind, and I'm still processing everything. I don't think I'll ever forget the night before my first art exhibit. At the time, I was a 27-year-old aspiring artist trying to find my place in the world. I had just moved to New York City, leaving behind my small, quiet hometown in western Pennsylvania, and was making my way as best as I could. I'd always known I wanted to be an artist. From a young age, I loved drawing, painting, and expressing myself through art. My parents, however, never took it seriously. They worked hard at blue-collar jobs. My dad was a mechanic, and my mom worked as a nurse at the local hospital. They valued stability, practicality, and hard work. It didn't matter to them how much I loved drawing or how much time I spent pouring myself into my paintings. Art wasn't a career, it was a hobby. They were always supportive, but they didn't get me. My name's Allison, and I'm the youngest of 3. Growing up, I always felt different. My older brother, Jason, became an electrician, and my sister, Claire, ran a small family-owned deli. Both of them seemed to fit perfectly into the life my parents had envisioned for us. But me? I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more out there for me. I wasn't content with living in a small town working a 9-to-5 job that drained the life out of me. It wasn't until after I graduated college that I gathered the courage to move to New York City. I rented a tiny, run-down apartment in Brooklyn and worked part-time at a cafe to make ends meet. But in every free moment I had, I painted. I took workshops, connected with local artists, and tried to find my own voice. Eventually, I felt ready for my first solo exhibit. It was an overwhelming feeling of pride mixed with fear. I spent weeks curating the pieces, making sure they told the story I had carried with me for years. I knew my parents would never approve of it. They didn't understand abstract art, and they certainly didn't understand why I was pouring my heart into it. But still, I wanted them to come. I wanted them to see me, really see me, as the artist I had always wanted to be. The night before the exhibit, I called them. My mother picked up the phone, her voice chipper as always. "Allison, what's up, sweetie?" "Mom, Dad," I began, trying to sound casual but failing. "I have my first solo art show tomorrow night. It's at a gallery here in the city. I was hoping you could come." I could feel the hesitation from the other side of the line. My mom paused for a long time before replying. "Oh, well, that's nice, honey. What kind of art is it? You know your dad and I aren't really into the modern stuff." "It's abstract," I said, keeping my voice steady. "But I think you'll like it. I'd really love for you to be there." There was a long pause, and then my dad spoke, his voice gruff. "We'll see. Maybe. We've got a lot going on." I tried not to let their indifference get to me, but I was crushed. All I had ever wanted was for them to support me. It wasn't even about them buying my paintings or showing up with flowers, I just wanted them to care. But that night, I could tell they didn't care. It was just another one of my phases to them. The night of the exhibit, the gallery was small but filled with warmth, and I was buzzing with nervous energy. I'd worked so hard on each painting, and seeing them all displayed on the walls made me feel a rush of pride I had never experienced before. But when my parents finally walked in, my heart dropped. They looked like fish out of water. My dad was wearing his usual flannel shirt and jeans, the kind of outfit he'd wear to work on cars, and my mom had on a faded sweater and slacks. They looked uncomfortable, like they were in the wrong place, and I could see their eyes darting around the room, avoiding my artwork. "Allie," my dad barked as he walked over to one of my paintings. His voice carried across the room. "What is this? It looks like something a 5-year-old could make." "These are just scribbles." I felt the color drain from my face, and my heart dropped to my stomach. I stood there frozen, unable to speak. I had expected criticism, but hearing it like that, in front of all these people, was unbearable. I could see the people around us starting to notice, their gazes shifting from my dad to me. My mother let out a loud, uncomfortable laugh. "Oh, Carl, be nice. It's interesting, I guess." I tried to hold it together, but tears stung at the back of my eyes. I had worked so hard to get here, and this was the reaction I got from the two people I had hoped would be proud of me. My mother, who had always been the more understanding of the two, barely acknowledged my work. She looked at one painting, then shrugged. It's certainly different." I could feel my hands trembling as I excused myself. The night was a blur after that. I spent most of it in the back room of the gallery, trying to hold back tears. I knew they wouldn't understand my art. But what stung more than the words was the fact that they hadn't even tried. They had dismissed it outright, mocking me without a second thought. By the time they left, barely an hour into the exhibit, I felt empty. I had hoped that by inviting them, they would see how much it meant to me. But instead, they had walked out without a single word of encouragement. 2 years later, life went on. I kept painting, kept showing my work, and kept pushing myself to be better. The hurt from that night never fully went away, but I tried not to let it define me. I sold a few pieces here and there, mostly to local buyers or people who visited the small galleries I exhibited at. But nothing like what happened next. One day, I got a call from a gallery in Los Angeles. They had seen one of my paintings in a smaller auction and were interested in featuring it at a major auction. I was floored. When the painting finally sold for $47,000, I couldn't believe it. It was the kind of success I had dreamed of but never thought would happen. I was ecstatic, of course. This was my breakthrough. My career was taking off. I felt validated, like I had finally made it. But then, a week later, I received another call, this time, from my parents. "Allison, we heard about the sale," my mother said, her tone casual but with a hint of expectation. "That's wonderful." "Really, it is. But, don't you think it's time to share some of that with your family?" I was silent for a moment, confused. "What do you mean, share?" "Well," my dad chimed in, "you've been doing this for years, and we supported you. Don't you think it's time to give back? A little bit of that money could go a long way for us." I was stunned. My mind was racing, and I felt my anger rise up, but I kept my voice steady. "You want a cut of the sale?" "Well," my mom said again, "we've been there for you all these years, Allison. You wouldn't be where you are without us." I felt my throat tighten, and the same bitterness I had tried to push down for years came rushing back. My parents, who had mocked my art, who had belittled my dreams, were now asking for a piece of the very success they had never supported. It felt like a slap in the face. I didn't know how to respond. Was I wrong to feel hurt? Should I just give them what they wanted to avoid more conflict? Or was this my moment to stand up for myself and what I had achieved, on my own, despite their criticism? The guilt gnawed at me. But deep down, I knew what the right answer was. I sat there, my hands gripping the phone tightly as I struggled to find the right words. Part of me wanted to hang up, tell them I was too busy to talk, but I couldn't. Not after everything that had happened. Not after years of feeling misunderstood, ridiculed, and dismissed. The feeling of betrayal was sharp, almost physical. I had worked so hard to get to this point, and it wasn't just about the money, it was about proving to myself, and maybe to them, that I was capable of more than they ever thought I could be. "What do you expect me to do, exactly?" I finally asked, trying to keep my voice even, but it wavered. "Well," my dad's voice came through gruffly, "you've got plenty of money now. You could at least help out your old parents. You know, we've been struggling for years. Your mother and I could use some extra help around here." My heart sank as I processed his words. Struggling? What did they mean by that? The idea that they had been struggling didn't quite sit right with me. Yes, I knew my dad had a tendency to complain about work and money, but he had never seemed to be in dire financial straits. And my mom, though modest, was always employed and had a decent pension. "Dad, I don't know what you're talking about," I said, trying to remain calm. "You've never mentioned any kind of financial struggle to me." There was a pause on the other end. I could hear them exchanging glances, maybe trying to figure out how to phrase it. Finally, my mother spoke up. "Well, things haven't been as easy as you think, Allison," she said, her voice softer now. "You've been out there living your dream, but we've been left behind. We supported you when you were younger, and now, well, maybe it's your turn to give back. It wouldn't hurt to help us out a little." The implication stung like a slap. I felt my frustration bubble up again. "Help you out? By giving you a portion of something I've worked my ass off for?" I snapped, before taking a breath to compose myself. I've been living paycheck to paycheck in this city, barely making it, struggling to get my foot in the door. And now that I've had a little bit of success, you think it's my responsibility to help you? "Don't be so dramatic, Allison," my father interrupted, his voice sharp. "It's not like we're asking for everything. Just a little bit. $1,000 here and there. It's nothing, really." $1,000? I repeated, trying to wrap my head around it. "You've got to be kidding me." "I'm just saying, you wouldn't be here without us," my mom added, trying to soften the tension. "All we're asking for is a little recognition. You don't have to be so cold about it." I felt sick. Recognition? After all the years they had ridiculed my art, after all the years they had told me that I should get a real job and stop wasting my time, now they wanted recognition? The anger that had been building inside me for so long came rushing to the surface. "Recognition?" I repeated bitterly. "You didn't support me. You didn't believe in me. And now, when I've finally made something of myself, you want to act like you were always there for me?" The silence on the other end was deafening. I could feel them processing my words, maybe realizing just how much they had hurt me over the years. I didn't care. I couldn't care. I had worked too hard to let them take this from me, too. This moment of success was mine, and I wasn't going to let them undermine it. "I don't owe you anything, Mom," I said, my voice finally breaking through the thick silence. "I've made it on my own. I've worked my ass off to get here, and I didn't ask for anyone's help. You had your chance to support me, and you didn't. You weren't there when I needed you. So no, I'm not giving you a penny." There was a long, tense pause. I could hear the hurt in my mom's voice when she spoke next. "Allison, we're your parents. Don't you think that means something?" she said softly. "Yes," I replied, feeling the weight of the conversation press down on me. "You are my parents. But that doesn't mean I owe you for every moment of my life. I'm not some charity, and I'm not your safety net." Another long silence filled the phone. It was the first time in my life I had ever spoken to them this way. But I wasn't sorry. I couldn't be. Not when I had fought so hard to get to where I was. Finally, my dad muttered, "You're making a mistake, Allison. You'll regret this." I wanted to argue back, to lash out more, but something inside me told me I was done. I wasn't going to argue anymore. I had said what I needed to say, and now it was time to move on. "I won't regret it," I said firmly, and before either of them could respond, I ended the call. The following days were a blur. I didn't feel relieved after the conversation. In fact, I felt more lost than ever. Part of me still wished that my parents could see me for who I truly was, the person I had become, not the daughter they had always wanted me to be, but the woman I had fought so hard to become. It hurt that they couldn't be proud of me, that they still saw me as a disappointment, despite everything I had achieved. But then again, was I really surprised? They'd never supported my dreams, never believed in my potential. Why would they start now? The truth was, I didn't know what to do with my emotions. I wanted to let go of the anger, to move on from the years of rejection, but the feeling of betrayal lingered. I thought about my art, the work I had done, the person I had become, and I knew deep down that I couldn't let anyone, especially not my parents, take that away from me. So, I did what I always did when I felt lost: I painted. I poured my emotions into the canvas, trying to let the anger and hurt flow through me and onto the paint. I lost myself in the process, finding solace in the brushstrokes that allowed me to express what words couldn't. I didn't reach out to my parents after that conversation. Part of me felt like I should, maybe to smooth things over, maybe to try to understand their side. But the other part of me, the part that had spent years trying to prove myself, knew that I needed space. I needed time to process everything, to figure out what this all meant for me and my future. And then, a few months later, I received a letter in the mail from my father. The letter was brief, just a few lines, but it hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't an apology, far from it, but it was his way of reaching out, maybe trying to reconnect. "I still think you're making a mistake," it read. "But if you ever need anything, we're still here. Just don't forget where you came from." I stared at the letter for a long time, my fingers tracing the words, the same words that had been a part of so many conversations over the years. Don't forget where you came from. Was this their way of telling me that I owed them, or was it their way of trying to mend the broken relationship? I wasn't sure. But what I did know was that it didn't change anything. I had made my peace with myself. Maybe I'd never get the kind of approval I wanted from them. Maybe they'd always see me as the girl who dreamed too big and left behind a world they understood. But I had to live my life for me, not for them. And if they couldn't accept that, then maybe it was time for me to let go, for good. The letter sat on my desk for days, staring at me with its cold, familiar words. It was as if I could feel the weight of the years of unresolved tension, expectations, and unspoken resentment pressing down on it. I wanted to throw it away. I wanted to leave it behind, along with all the things I had worked so hard to overcome, the pain of never being seen, the years of feeling like I wasn't enough. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the desire to finally set things straight, to have the last word, to show them who I really was. Maybe it was my stubborn need for validation, even if I knew deep down that I didn't need it. I don't know exactly what it was, but I found myself reaching for my phone and typing a message. I had to write it. "Hey, Mom and Dad, I got your letter. Thank you for reaching out. I know this might be hard to understand, but I'm doing this for me. I found my place in the world, and it's a world you never really understood, and that's okay. I've learned to stand on my own. I built something on my own, and it's more than just art. It's about who I am, who I become. And honestly, I don't need your approval anymore. But here's the thing. All those years you told me I was dreaming too big, that I needed to settle down and get a real job, well, guess what? Those dreams paid off. My paintings are being recognized. I'm doing something I love, and people are paying for it. It's more than I ever expected. I'm not asking you for anything, but the least you can do is stop trying to take credit for something you didn't help me build. I've earned everything I have, and I did it on my own. I'm not going to forget where I came from, but I'm not going to let it hold me back either. So no, I'm not sending you a check. I'm not giving you a dime of the sale. If anything, I've already paid my dues by trying to make you proud, and I've realized that I can't keep chasing approval from people who never believed in me. I wish you both well, but I have to move forward, and that means moving on." Alice and I sat there for a while after I hit send. I wasn't sure if I felt relieved, empowered, or just emotionally drained. But what I did know was that I wasn't asking for anything anymore. I wasn't pleading for their approval. I had spent too many years begging for it, and now I was done. I was finally letting go. The days that followed were oddly quiet. I kept myself busy with new art projects, some of which were starting to garner attention from galleries in major cities. The momentum I had been building kept me going. I couldn't afford to let my parents' rejection slow me down, not when things were finally falling into place. Then, out of nowhere, I received an email from the Los Angeles gallery that had showcased my work in the auction. They informed me that they were interested in featuring me in another event, this time, a large-scale solo exhibition at a prestigious gallery in Soho, New York City. The thought of showcasing my paintings in the heart of the art world made my heart race. I was over the moon. But as exciting as that opportunity was, a part of me couldn't forget the email from my parents. The anger that had initially bubbled up started to feel less like revenge and more like a desire to prove a point. It wasn't about showing them they were wrong, or making them feel bad for dismissing my dreams. It was about showing them that I could stand tall without them. The exhibition in New York City was scheduled for 3 months from then, and I knew that the invitation to my parents would be the final act. It wasn't just about showing them what I had achieved, it was about showing them that the little girl they had dismissed was gone. I was an adult now, an artist, and their rejection wasn't going to stop me from living the life I had dreamed of. I sent the invitation a few weeks later. It wasn't a request for them to attend, it was simply an invitation, addressed to both of them, with a note that said, "If you'd like to come, I'd be happy to see you there." But no pressure. I didn't hear back from them right away, which didn't surprise me. But 2 days before the event, I received a text from my mom. "We'll be there. Don't forget where you came from, Allison. We'll be proud to see you. Hope you've learned something." I was taken aback. I didn't know if I was more surprised by the fact that they were attending or the condescending tone of her message. But I didn't let it bother me. I was bigger than this. The night of the exhibition arrived, and the gallery was buzzing with energy. It was a large space, filled with high-end art collectors, critics, and enthusiasts, all mingling and admiring the vibrant works on the walls. The lights above my paintings highlighted the intricate details of my abstract pieces, and the reactions were exactly what I had hoped for. People were engaged, discussing my work, and, most importantly, they were buying. As the evening wore on, I spotted my parents standing near the entrance. My mom looked like she had just stepped out of a magazine, her hair was perfectly styled, and she was wearing an outfit I could never afford, probably bought from one of the fancy department stores she loved so much. My dad, ever the stoic figure, stood next to her with his arms crossed. They looked almost out of place, like tourists in a world they couldn't understand. I walked over to them, my heart pounding. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I knew it wouldn't be easy. When they saw me, my mom gave a strained smile, while my dad gave me a curt nod. "Well, this is something," my mom said, her voice barely audible over the chatter in the room. "It's nice to see you've finally made it, Allison." "I'm glad you could make it," I replied, my voice steady despite the emotion bubbling under the surface. I didn't know if they meant it or if they were just here because they felt they had to be. But I didn't care anymore. I had proven to myself, and to everyone else, that I was more than their expectations. My father cleared his throat. "Your work, it's not what I expected, but it's impressive." I nodded, feeling a strange sense of closure wash over me. "Thanks, Dad." My mom, on the other hand, seemed to be struggling to hide her discomfort. I guess we were wrong about you, Allie. Maybe this is art after all." It was like a weight lifted off my shoulders. It wasn't an apology, but it was the closest I was going to get to one. I realized that it wasn't about hearing them say the words I had longed to hear, it was about me finally accepting that I didn't need their approval anymore. As the night progressed, I saw my parents drift into the background, blending in with the crowd of art lovers. They weren't the center of attention anymore. They were just spectators. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a disappointment. I didn't feel like I had to explain myself or justify my choices. At the end of the evening, as the last of the guests filtered out, I walked up to the gallery owner, who handed me a check for my sales. It was more money than I had ever imagined, but it wasn't the money that made me feel victorious. It was the knowledge that I had built this life on my own. I had fought for it. And I had won. As I was packing up, my parents made their way to the door. My dad gave me a curt wave, and my mom pulled me into a brief hug. "We're proud of you, Allison," she said, her voice softer now, but there was something behind it, something that told me she had finally seen me for who I truly was. But I didn't need to hear it. I was already proud of myself. I had made it. Not for them. Not for anyone else. But for me. As they left the gallery, I watched them go, a sense of calm settling over me. I had fought for my dreams, and I had won, not just the art world, but my own sense of self-worth. And that was enough.